Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Welcome to my vegetable garden. Look, we have a beautiful, bright, sunny day. It's a little chilly outside, but I finally get to do my video outdoors. So what have I got for you today? Well, first of all, just in case some of you are new to me, I'll give a quick introduction to myself. Then I'm going to show you the setup for our vegetable garden because we'll be spending an awful lot of time out here this season. And then I also planted my lettuce seedlings outdoors a few days ago, so I want to check on them and show you what their setup is. I live in Spokane, Washington, which is located about 300 miles east of Seattle. It's a dry climate here, except we get very cold, very snowy winters. This is hardiness zone 5B, although most of Spokane is in 6A. We just happen to be in a microclimate. I am the author of the Vegetable Garden Problem Solver Handbook and the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook, and also co-author with my friend and colleague Pat Muntz of the Northwest Gardener's Handbook. I have been a master gardener for 21 years, and I'm the Sunday garden columnist for the Spokesman Review newspaper here in Spokane. I am passionate about organic vegetable gardening, and I have shot over 470 videos on all kinds of gardening topics because I want all of you to be successful. So as you might be able to tell when looking at our garden, we are very into using raised beds. We've been doing this for over 30 years, and it is a great way to grow vegetables. In this main part of our garden, we have 21 raised beds for growing vegetables, and then there's 2 beds over here that are for growing raspberries. A few years back, we put in extra raised beds on the south end of the main part of our garden because, well, you can never have too many beds, right? You can see that they are still covered in snow, and they also get a bit of shade, and so a few years ago we changed the layout of the garden so that it gets more sunlight. You just can't tell it right now because it's very early in the morning and the sun is still not up above us like it will be for the majority of the garden season. We also have blackberry vines over here, and those are definitely a source of joy in the summer when they're bearing. It's still very early in the season for us here, so as you can imagine, we don't have much growing yet. But I did want to show you a couple things about our raised bed garden before we move on. First of all of the beds are watered with a drip irrigation system. That's something that my husband Bill designed for us and maintains, bless his heart. So that's what that is. And then you've probably noticed all of the white sort of pipe things on the outsides of the beds. So we put those on each of the beds as a way to hold hoops and covers if we should need them, whether for frost protection, for insect protection, for warming up a crop earlier in the season, and so on. All this is 10-inch tall pieces of PVC pipe, and then we use little metal clamps to attach them to the sides. And that way we can very easily just plop the hoops into these upright supports and then put a cover over it. So that's all that is. I know that it's not very aesthetically pleasing, but it's very practical, and it's very quick for us to set up a cover on a bed. 2 of our raised beds have hinged covers on them. They are primarily there to keep insects out, and they are covered with an agricultural insect mesh, also known as garden insect netting and agricultural insect netting. This keeps out things like aphids, cabbage worms, leaf miners, and so on. In my book, the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook, I have a bunch of do-it-yourself projects, and both making a raised bed and a hinged cover for the bed are in there, just in case you're interested in seeing how they went together. We use a lot of vertical supports for growing different types of vegetables. So in this case, this is one that's made from a cattle panel, also known as a livestock panel, and This is for growing vining crops such as cucumbers, small pumpkins, small winter squash, and so on. These are just great, and it's nice to get the plants up off the ground and let them grow up vertically. Now I also have an arbor that I use for growing pole beans. You'll be seeing that set up in the coming weeks. And this way of growing things vertically saves a lot of space. It keeps the plants off the ground where maybe they might be susceptible to some pest problems. I'm talking things like animals or birds. And so it's a great way to grow things. Now, if you're wondering about all of these milk jugs, that is my winter sowing project. I have a video that I shot very early this year that showed how it works. And the weather has been so incredibly cold here, they're just now starting to sprout. So I'm hoping to give you an update in the coming weeks. We also have a small hoop house. It is 9 feet by 10 feet. It fits over 2 of our raised beds, and we use it year round. So during the colder months of the year, I use it for growing really cold tolerant salad greens, although last winter it did not go well, and that's because we went basically from a long summer right into winter and into bitterly cold temperatures. So the poor plants really struggled. You can maybe see that there's still some kale growing in here, but they did not do as well as they usually do. But this is great. We use it also during the growing season, the normal growing season, and we use it for growing heat-loving things like peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, melons, and so on. Now, it has a door on each end, and certainly during the growing season, once it's warm enough, we have both doors open, and pollinators do get in there very easily, so it has worked really well for us. If you're interested in how this is built, we did build this in 2013, I think it is, and I have a blog post on susansinthegarden.com. If you look for the words Hoop House Project, you'll find a supply list and a video showing the process that we went through to make it. We also have a small greenhouse. It is 6 feet wide by 8 feet long. A lot of it is covered in glass, and there's also parts of it that are covered with twin wall polycarbonate, which is more energy efficient, and eventually we would like to replace the glass with it. The cool part of the story, though, is that our neighbors gave us this greenhouse when they bought the property across the street from us. They knew they wouldn't be using the greenhouse, asked if we would like it, and yeah, we were thrilled. So we primarily use the greenhouse as kind of a staging area. So when we start seeds indoors and they get to a certain point where they're growing very nicely, we'll move them into the greenhouse so that we have room to start even more seeds indoors. And it has an automatic vent opener, which is quite nice, and that way it doesn't get too hot in there, although that's not really a problem this time of year. Last year, Bill and I made this 3-bin compost setup. It's something I've been wanting to have for ages, and this is working really well for us. We keep adding all sorts of things into it and producing nice compost for the soil in the raised beds. Now right now it looks a bit of a mess because we just got through the winter season, we're moving things around and so on. But this has worked great, and I have a video on it from last year that explained how we built it and also how to do your own composting. Okay, so I've been telling you for the last few weeks in my seed starting videos that my plan was to get my early started lettuce plants out into the garden, into a protected area. So I want to show you what the setup is so you better understand how I'm able to pull this off. I should also mention that I chose a covered bed primarily to keep the birds out. We do have problems with California quail and finches nibbling on the leaves of lettuce plants. They like them just as much as we humans do, I guess. So that's why I have them in a covered bed. So here's how the lid opens. It's pretty slick, huh? And then what I have inside for the time being, while it's so darned cold, is a series of cool weather row cloches. These are from Gardener's Supply. I don't have an affiliation with them, but I did want to let you know where they came from. So this is to give them extra protection. I'll show you a close-up of them in a moment, but they've got adjustable openings on the top so that it doesn't get too hot in here during the day. And it also has little holes every so often, so if it rains, the plants will easily get watered. Okay, so this end comes off, and then this next section comes off, and oh, it's nice and warm underneath. There's that one. So you can see these little lettuce seedlings are very happy in here. And then this comes off as well, and there's an end just like this one at that point there. So I have 4 rows of lettuce in here, and this gives me the ability to harvest fresh salad greens much earlier than if I had to wait for it to be warm enough out in the garden without any protection. I did want to show you that I create a garden layout plan for each year, and that way when I'm deciding where something's going to go, I can look at the last 2 or 3 years worth of garden layout plans, and that way I can do a form of crop rotation to keep plants healthy. You can see we have all kinds of things planned for this year in the different beds, and this really helps keep me on track. I have a list of all of the vegetable varieties that will be growing this year on my website, susansinthegarden.com. Just go to the Guides menu and look for Susan's Garden 2023. The list even includes possible sources for the seeds. Okay, that's everything for today. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. I'll see you next week. Happy gardening, and what a treat it is to be outside.